Guys, welcome in. Just going to go over some quick preseason NFL bets that I like, player over-unders. We've also got a few team over-unders. I don't know the total number of bets this is. I think it's around 15 total. But we will start with the San Francisco 49ers. I love the over 10.5 wins. It's plus 140. I just love this 49ers team. The only question to me is Trey Lance, and I think he takes a gigantic leap, in my opinion, and the 49ers win the NFC West over the Rams, over Arizona. I just love them. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Trent Williams, a good enough running game. You've got a great offensive innovator in Kyle Shanahan. You've got Nick Bosa, who I think is going to win Defensive Player of the Year. A very, very strong overall team in terms of depth. I love the 49ers in the NFC this year. So I've got them over 10.5, kind of a bolder pick, plus 140. The Seattle Seahawks under 5.5 total wins. I'm just not seeing it with Seattle. I think their ceiling is 5-12. And it comes down to the quarterback situation. You do have DK Metcalf, but other than him, I mean, Tyler Lockett, I guess. I just see this team really not being motivated late in the season. I've got them under the 5.5 win mark, whether it's Geno Smith or Drew Lock. You know, will those QBs combine for over 5.5 wins? I don't see it personally. And then my final win total is the Indianapolis Colts over 9.5. I expect them to win their division fairly easily over Tennessee. So over 9.5, Matt Ryan, a little bit of a resurgence behind a really good offensive line. You've got the superstar running back. You've got a really good wide receiver as well in Michael Pittman. And then a very, very solid defense led by Darius Leonard. I like Indianapolis winning 11 games and going over that 9.5 mark. Let's get to the player over-unders. So Trey Lance, total passing touchdowns. I've got over 21.5. I love Trey Lance. If he starts all 17 games, which you would hope he would, 21.5 is very easy. I would say something like 26 or 27 passing touchdowns for Trey Lance. So I've got the over there. Matt Ryan, total passing touchdowns. I'm going to go over 24.5. I'm expecting a bounce back year for Matt Ryan. Of course, the one thing to be worried about when it comes to individual player over-unders is the injury risk. Matt Ryan is older, but as long as he's got a good offensive line, he should be fine. And if he starts those 17 games, the 17 games, I would say over 24.5 is a very easy number for him to eclipse. Next, we've got Christian McCaffrey. So this is all based on health, and I am betting on McCaffrey to finally have a healthy season. I'm going over 875 rushing yards. Obviously, the only reason this number is this low is because of the injury concerns, but I like the over personally, 875 rushing yards. Finally, he needs to have a healthy year after missing the past 2 years. He's got a lot of rest. He hasn't taken a lot of hits recently. I like the over. Deebo Samuel, regular season rushing yards under 379. I think he turns into more of a receiver this year. He's got the big deal. Trey Lance is also going to eat into some of that rushing yards that he had last year. I think he's more of a pure receiver. He's going to get rushing. He's going to get a few carries, but I think they're really going to try and keep him healthy and not really give him the ball on 1st and 10 and things like that. I see him maybe around 270, 280 rush yards personally, so I would go under. We've got Trey Lance, regular season rushing touchdowns. I got over 6.5. I just love Trey Lance as a dual threat thrower and a runner. 6.5 is a pretty easy number to eclipse, especially if he plays the full amount of games. We've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, total receiving yards. I have over 850, so Amon-Ra should get a lot of looks early in the season. Last year, as a rookie, I believe he had 950 receiving yards. I understand you do have DJ Chark, you still have TJ Hawkinson, and you do have Jameson Williams, who will be ready by midseason, so maybe his target share gets cut into a little bit, but he should see improvement. He really wasn't even playing much as a 4th-round pick last year early in the season and still had 950 yards, so he should at least be able to get that this year. I've got the over 850. Next, we've got Mike Evans, total receiving yards. I have the under 1,000 receiving yards. Mike Evans getting older, dealing with hamstring issues. You've got a lot of targets. You've got Julio Jones. You've got Chris Godwin coming back. You've got Leonard Fournette out of the backfield. You've got Russell Gage. A lot of mouths to feed in that offense. Mike Evans getting older, maybe dealing with some hamstrings. This would be kind of a bet, with the idea that Evans might miss a few games in the regular season, especially if the Bucs have a really good record and can afford to maybe rest him. I like the under 1,000 yards. CeeDee Lamb, total receiving touchdowns. I love the over 7.5. I understand why it's that low because CeeDee's really not a big red zone presence, but overall, this Dallas team outside of Dalton Schultz, they're going to rely so much on CeeDee Lamb, and I just think overall volume, maybe he gets 4 or 5 longer touchdowns along with a few 15 to 20 yarders. I see him getting over 7.5 fairly easily, probably 9 or 10. The only reason this number is this low is because he is a smaller receiver, but his volume should be crazy. Dallas does not have, very many experienced receivers behind Lamb, so he's going to get a ton of targets, especially early in the season. We have DJ Moore, total receiving touchdowns. I love the over 5.5. DJ Moore is due to have a big season, especially in the touchdown department. After having over 1,100 yards last year and only 4 touchdowns, he's due for that to even out a little bit. He's going to get the 12 or 1,300 yards. He's going to break out as a top 10 receiver, in my opinion. That's why I love him in fantasy, and I love the over 5.5 total touchdowns. And then how about this? We've got Jerry Judy, regular season total touchdowns, over 5.5. Another guy I think is going to absolutely break out. I've said several times, the stars are aligning for Jerry Judy. Year number 1 in the NFL, he had a horrible quarterback situation. Year number 2, he had a horrible quarterback situation and an injury. Year number 3 now, he's healthy. He's got Russell Wilson. He was a beast at Alabama. He's going to break out. All the signs are there. They're screaming breakout for Jerry Judy. Over 5.5 touchdowns receiving. And then the receiving yards, I've got Jerry Judy well over 1,000. So I'll take the over 915 total receiving yards for him in terms of his solo bet. And then we've got Nick Bosa. So I'm big into Nick Bosa this season. I think he's going to win Defensive Player of the Year. This is the total sacks. I have Nick Bosa over and well over, as long as he's healthy, the 11.5 sacks for Nick Bosa. I think he gets 14 or 15 sacks. He led the league in tackles for loss last year. I think he turns a lot of that into overall sack numbers this year. And then this is kind of just a weird one. I mean, I wouldn't recommend betting it, but I think it's fairly obvious. So I would say the Chicago Bears getting their first win week number 3. I think they're going to definitely lose to San Francisco in their home opener. They're going to lose at Green Bay. And then week 3 versus Houston, I have Justin Fields winning that game. That is plus 145 for the Chicago Bears to get their first win in week 3. It is kind of a circumstance type bet, I understand. But I just saw it. I thought it was good. Baltimore Ravens, exact division position, finishing position. I have Baltimore winning the AFC North over Cincinnati, so I would say first and the plus 160. I feel very confident that Baltimore will win. Of course, depends. Is Lamar Jackson healthy? You've got J.K. Dobbins coming back. You've got a great defense. Really, really loved the pick of Kyle Hamilton, with the 14th overall selection, so I loved that one. And then the AP Defensive Player of the Year, the value for Nick Bosa is amazing. I understand the idea of Myles Garrett being the favorite with him not winning one yet, but also we got to remember Nick Bosa hasn't won one yet either. I think it's Nick Bosa's year, plus 1,400. That's the best value you're going to find as long as he stays healthy. Micah Parsons going into his second season, I could see it, but I'm not betting him. Aaron Donald's always there. TJ Watt just won it. But give me Nick Bosa, and I really think the 49ers are really going to take over the NFC this year. It seems everything is set up for them. And it seems like the best value in terms of Defensive Player of the Year, Nick Bosa, plus 1,400. So, guys, overall, those are just some interesting, bets that I saw that I do like for the upcoming NFL season. That's going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Link to that's always in the description. I'm, of course, the Depressed Ginger. Thank you for watching.